Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So I was just watching a video by Scalagrim, I couldn't agree more with it. Essentially, it's the basis that it's ridiculous that some people are intimidated by or marginalised people who are interested in weapons or combat sports or martial arts or even just fringe hobbies, fringe activities, less popular hobbies out there. And this is, I guess it's a kind of fundamentally basic thing to humans, that the majority of people, or sheeple as I would refer to many of them, don't like anything that's remotely out of the norm. But the point that I really want to make is that I find it sort of hilarious actually that in modern society people have moved to a position where they think anyone who practices with weapons, whether it's shooting or whether it's a sort of anachronistic martial art like Hema or Kali or Kenjutsu, that they're somehow weird or potentially dangerous people. When in actual fact it was really quite recent times in history, a century ago, that things like boxing, wrestling, single stick and fencing, when fencing was actually seen as a martial activity rather than just an Olympic sport, and shooting indeed, were fairly mainstream activities. Remember that prior to World War I, huge numbers of people were members of volunteer military organisations within their own countries. In Britain it was the rifle volunteer movement, which ultimately became the territorial army of today. Lots of towns in England have an area, usually near where there's a rising ground that's known as the butts, and these are the rifle butts. They're where they used to practice rifle shooting, a popular activity. And of course, if we go back a bit further to the 18th century, some of the most popular country sports were wrestling, boxing, feudalism as it was known then, and backsword and single stick and things like this, and these were really popular mainstream activities, and they make sense because they train people for defending the nation. They give them a useful skill, and it's a way of working out people's stresses and excess energy. And if people have got maybe issues with one of their neighbours and they meet at one of these country fairs and smack each other about with sticks or shillelaghs, then they probably work out their differences in a more productive way than going through law courts and stuff like we do today. And it really bothers me when we've got to a position now where people think that doing an activity like fencing is somehow weird in comparison to kicking a spherical object around a large field for 90 minutes. There is nothing more weird about one sport or one hobby or martial art compared to another one. They're just different. Some people like to do things that are different because they're different. Other people, like me, from a very early age, I wanted to do archery, I wanted to do fencing, I wanted to do these things. They seemed like useful, practical skills to me. Kicking a ball around a field doesn't seem like a particularly useful or practical skill in the real world. By real world, I mean the world where we are humans. For millennia and millennia we have had to hunt and fight to survive. Things like knowing how to throw a spear or how to shoot a bow or even how to use a fishing line or row a boat or indeed run are all useful, very practical skills and exercises that in the normal world, i.e. the world that has existed for most of history, or in fact that exists in lots of parts of the world today, places like bits of Africa or South America or Afghanistan, or bits of the world where people still live more closely with their environment than most of us watching YouTube do. These skills are more real, they're more tangible, and they have enabled the human species. I don't like the term human race because that makes no sense. That it has enabled the human species to exist and to survive to this point and to build civilizations and to create all these things that we have. playing golf or playing tennis has not built civilizations. Archery, fencing, riding, charioteering, rowing, these things have helped build civilizations. So, those of you who are, you know, the more normal people out there, don't denigrate those of us who have interests in skills of perhaps bygone ages that actually have played a far bigger part in human civilization and human betterment and furtherment and getting us to where we are now than the sports that are now glorified in modern society have. Cheers.